Hello, and welcome to the Physical Therapy Owners Club. I'm Nathan Shields, and today I have a returning guest, superstar, the front desk, Dee Bills, front office guru. Dee Bills, thanks for coming on again.
Hey, Nathan, thanks so much. This is awesome. One of my favorite interviews to do, so thank you.
Oh, cool. Thanks for coming on. I'm sure we've done this might be our third?
This is our third,
3 years or so.
Yeah.
So it's good to catch up with you and see what you're working on. You're doing a ton of amazing stuff with Front Office Guru. For those people who haven't listened to you in the past, number one, go back and listen to the previous podcast episodes related to front desk things in general, but get a little sense about where Dee Bills came from in her story and what she's doing now to improve front desks across the country in all industries, not just physical therapy. But for those who haven't heard that story before or don't know exactly what front desk guru is, just give us a really quick synopsis about your back history and front office guru.
Yeah, I'll do the abbreviated version, the Cliff Notes. Yeah. So as a physical therapist, I was in treatment for close to 20 years. And then Mike started getting some coaching and consulting for his practice. And they were like, okay, Dee needs to be there too. And I don't think I ever saw myself as an owner or a manager. I was happy treating. And so, being committed to that, I shifted and I started working in my office and I was taking a financial course and I was like, we need to make more money. Like we're not going to survive. And I'm like, how do we do that? And they're like, find where you're bleeding. And I sat there in this course and I was like, front desk, and I realized that my front desk didn't have cancellation training and they didn't have schedule training and our schedule looked like this and just was like, wow, I got to handle this. And so I was blessed. I didn't have to provide or treat at that time. And I just started digging in at the front desk and creating systems that worked. And we took our arrival rate from 75% to, I think my team now has it at 96, 97% every day. And without me there, thank God, it just kind of evolved from there. And people started asking for help. And one day I looked at Mike and I was like, and apparently I've been saying this for months, but I was like, I think I want to do this. And he's like, good, go do it. And I was like, oh, now I got to be like serious about it. And I took my first client. In fact, I was emailing with her this morning and 5 years later, it's just kind of evolved into, I actually now have a client in Africa. So I can officially say I have a worldwide product. And
congratulations.
And we've actually like met and talked online. And Front Office Guru kind of came from me developing systems for our practice that worked really well and seeing how it put my front desk in the right mindset and the right driver's seat. And it really divided in the right way, the duties in the practice so that we have a very, when everybody's trained up, we have a very good machine that provides great care and all of that.
Yeah. And what I love about it, and the reason why I've referred my coaching clients over to you is because as physical therapists, we need to recognize that we're not the front desk experts, right? We shouldn't assume that just because we're high achieving people and we accomplish great things and do good things for people, that doesn't mean we're good at the front desk, right? And so anytime you can hire out to save energy and allow you to focus on other things, I think is highly valuable. And if there's one place in the entire clinic that can lose you the most money, it would probably be front desk, wouldn't you say?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, you think about it, they're the first, last, and every point of contact in your practice. Their job is to coordinate care. Your job as a provider is to provide the care. As an owner, your job is to run the practice. And so if you don't have well-trained people at your front desk, you're losing those more challenging sales, you're losing money, visits, and also your providers end up having to handle things that they shouldn't handle.
They shouldn't have to.
Right? Yeah, they shouldn't talk about money. They should just be like, this is the plan of care. And your front desk is like, okay, let's talk about how we're going to make that work. And so,
exactly. And it's interesting how some of those super significant KPIs, like arrival rate you mentioned, when you can improve, I have a KPI calculator that I got through the peer-to-peer network, but if you can improve that arrival rate from say 75 to 80 to 85%, right? That's what, maybe a 15% increase in arrival rate. What that does to your bottom line profit margin is like a 40%, 50% increase over the course of the year.
Yeah,
improving
huge.
Something like that comes down to simply improved net profit margins because your expenses stay the same.
Yeah.
So really focusing and spending the effort and time on a single statistic that the front desk handles and that you're not individually handling yourself can go a long way.
Yeah, it's a big part. And, it also creates ownership. Front desk manages quite a few stats, like 5 main stats. And when they're all running like they are right now, very high, there's a winning mindset. Like it's not and you and I know that from past training that we've both had, but, in order for a team member to really have ownership in their position, they have to not only be trained, but they have to track their own stats or metrics on it and be able to say, hey, I'm hitting a target or I'm not. But then they also have to have training and the tools to know where to go to fix it. It's not just like, oh, here's your arrival rate. Great. Oh, your arrival rate's not good. And your front desk, like, I don't know how to fix it. Right. And a big part of, like you said, owner training or training isn't just the owner getting training. Because if you're the owner that the only one that gets training, you're going to single hand this forever. And I remember Mike doing that early on where he was the only one getting training and he was working, he's like, I want to get down to a normal work week. And he was like 70, 80 hours because nobody else was trained yet. And so the minute we started training staff, now he was able to step away, do other things, expand himself.
Well, I know people who are listening are going to kick me if I don't ask the question. Your front desk has 5 key stats. Do you mind sharing?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's in all my blogs and stuff too. It's on my website. So there's 5. The first one is actually one that most staff or clinics don't track consistently, and that's calls converted to evals. So that's your conversions, right? Nice. So you were talking about arrival rate being a financial boom if you get it up. Believe it or not, if you can do the math on your average plan of care, let's say it's $1,000 for every additional new patient your front desk converts. That's a potential $1,000, plan of care. Right. And so if the average practice could lose anywhere from 5 to 10 a week if your front desk isn't trained on selling anything other than that low-hanging easy fruit. Wow. So that's the first one.
Do you count all calls as potential sales calls?
So anybody if they're not
calling, anyone that's not an active patient is a potential sales call?
Yeah, think about it. What do people say? The average front desk identifies the easy ones, right? Hi, I need physical therapy, or hi, I need your help, or whatever service that you provide. But what about the people that say, hi, what are your hours? Do you take my insurance? Do you do cupping? Because I saw that on the Olympics. I like to put that one out there because it was a big one a few years ago. Yeah. And if they're untrained, the average front office person, being very kind and generous, will say, well, sure, absolutely. Or, well, I'll have to check on that, or whatever the answer is. But guess what? The average patient, think about this. The average patient doesn't call your practice, or the average person doesn't pick up the phone and call your practice if they don't need your help right now.
Right.
But the average person doesn't recognize always that they need your help. So they think, I'll just pick up my cell phone and I'll reach out to them and I'll be like, I saw your ad online. Instead of the front desk leading them where they need them to go, what ends up happening is they answer that question. The next thing they have to do is ask a question. So they say, so would you like to go ahead and get scheduled? What do you think on average, the average person who's not ready to commit says?
No, I'm just looking around.
Exactly. I'll call you back. Yeah. Now we don't have any information. And by the way, for all the people that use like the voice, online voice stuff and collect all this data, your front desk doesn't want to call those people back because they didn't develop a relationship with them. So a big one, we're talking like $500,000 a year. A practice could improve just handling that first stat, which is conversions.
Transitioning those window shopping calls into actual new patients. Right?
Yeah. Now, obviously, we have to have the support network behind it, the PTs, PTAs, or whatever provider we have. Oh, sure. But, if you're running on a not full schedule, right there's a huge way, because we're not just getting one visit like we would handling a cancellation. We're getting 10 to 14 visits if we're a recurring treatment model. Right. That's the first one. The next main stat is arrival rate. Now you can diversify your arrival rate and look at new patient arrivals and current visit arrivals, because you could think, wow, I have a really crappy arrival rate, but your current patients are all showing up and it's your evals that are the problem. That's a whole other area that you need your front desk to be trained in, right? So we look at new patient conversions, arrival rate. Those are the two big ones.
Sure.
We look at schedule efficiency. That's the mother lode of all mothers, because schedule efficiency or utilization is actually relies on all these other, should have said that one last, and then the next one, which you and I have tracked over. So schedule utilization, schedule efficiency, whatever you call it, it's based on the number of visits you have available that your providers could provide on a given day, and how many of those are actually filled on a given day. So that's affected by refills, cancellations, add-ons, new patients, visits kept per week, all of that, so that one really is the mother lode. People look at visits per week as a indicator, but I like to look at scheduled utilization as an indicator. Right.
Okay.
So
good. I'm starting to think the same thing. So I'm glad backing me up on this, because I've been telling owners, total visits. Yes. You track total visits. That's like a no-brainer, but that utilization efficiency number tells so much, but correct me if I'm wrong, I see it as the one key thing that the front desk is responsible for.
Yes, it
is to get patients in the door. And
that's what I talk about. Yes, all the
so
time.
We're on the same page. Good.
Yes, that is huge. Like, think about, and that's actually what I teach them is, look, your main responsibility is to fill that schedule, because the provider's main responsibility is to provide the care. And if you think about it, your provider's your resource. I don't care what specialty you're in, your provider's your resource. It's the one that provides the care, that helps people. If we don't make sure that the providers are maximized, we're not maximizing our ability as a practice to help people. As an owner, you and I can say, that's why we're here, is to help people. So that's the very last thing in my courses is schedule utilization, schedule efficiency, because you have to convert evals, you have to convert leads, right? You have to get those leads to show up. You have to schedule out a plan of care. You have to get them to arrive consistently so they don't drop out. And you have to and then all of that carries over to your schedule being full. If you're missing those things, it's not always marketing.
Yeah.
It's not always the reason why your schedule isn't filled.
No.
And again, it's not because your front desk is bad, right? You and I were talking about that. It's because, look, I went to school I got a master's. I had 5.5 years of schooling. Now people go to school for 6-7 years to get their doctorate. And then if you do, any other training. So I look at that, and as a provider, think about, like, even when you first came out of school, nobody just said, oh, there you go treat patients, right? You got a little mentoring, and maybe not a lot, but you got mentoring and you worked your way in.
All kinds of training.
Yeah. But then think about the front desk. We didn't go to school for that. You didn't go for school for that.
Yeah.
And so, but they come on board. What kind of training did they get? Hit or miss. Some practices, I have talked to some practices. I'm always impressed when they're like, yeah, I got a training program. Heck yeah. And they're like, but I want to make it better. But the average person, it tends to be on the job. So Sally trains Sue. And if Sally ever play a game of telephone, when you're a kid, or do your kids do that?
Yeah.
Right. And so what happens is you get around that circle. Changes, right? So I might whisper happy days in your ear, but by the time it gets around 12 of us or whatever, somebody else could think it's like Sally plays, or, like totally different thing. And so if one person's training another, and that's your sole training at your front desk, if the first person changed anything, the second person isn't necessarily getting the same thing as the next person and the next person and whatever. So I like to look at, standardization. So far we have conversion, arrival rate. And like I said, you can split that up. Yeah. It should be clean arrival rate. Want me to qualify that?
Yeah, you brought it up.
Okay.
So now you have to.
It's on my site too. Clean arrival rate is simply, actually, I learned this from Sean Kirk years ago. Clean arrival rate is simply, so you have patients scheduled prior to today, right? That's arrival rates. All arrival rate measures is how well your patients understand that they either need to show up or give you notice. Whatever your notice is, 24 hours, the night before by closing, the day before by 2 p.m., right? So anybody who calls to cancel today for today or doesn't show up is a cancellation, even if they reschedule for another day this week.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of practices run off of if they cancel today for today and they reschedule for tomorrow, that's not a cancellation, but it is. Why? Well, how many spots am I taking up for one visit? Taking up the one that I canceled, and then the one for tomorrow. But then on top of that, since it's measuring your missed visit policy and, your expectation of arrival, refills and add-ons don't count toward arrival rate. So if I add you to my schedule today, that counts towards schedule utilization.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't
not the arrival
count.
rate.
Right. Arrival rate is simply anybody that was on last night for today and who showed up. So if I had 100 on, but only 98 of those 100 showed up, it'd be 98% arrivals. So, it's really important to look at all these stats because they're tiny little ways that we lose visits or we lose that, as you were saying earlier, that effectiveness.
Yeah. Well, there's an opportunity there and to get the team on board. When it comes to arrival rate, it's almost harder to convince the team, the front desk and the providers that arrival rate's important, but it all comes down to your patients need to show up in order to get better. And they get better faster when they actually show up according to their plan of care. Them dropping out makes you less efficient as a provider. And no matter how many times you see them next week doesn't make up for the fact that you missed giving them care this week. And it just extends their care, which is in no one's best interest. If you want to be a powerful provider, a powerful clinic, you provide as much care as fast as possible to get them to the best results as soon as possible. The arrival rate, a negative arrival rate shows that you're not doing that.
Yeah. Well, and think about it. You're totally right. And it's so funny that you say that. When you talk to Tony later, ask him about our conversation today, because we were just talking about that today. And so, look at it this way. We're there to help patients. Yeah. Right. I don't care what specialty, and that's all we're there to do is help our patients. Right. If a patient cancels today for today and you can't get another patient in, you didn't just have one patient that didn't get care, you had a second. And so the real reason we need our patients to show up or give us enough notice is so that we have enough time to help another patient get the care that they need and deserve. Right. And that's a big part of what I do when I start working with teams is really show them, look, it's about patient care. Everything we do, every piece of this puzzle is about closing up, marketers will talk about closing up that funnel so that right. But once that patient's in your funnel, like you were saying, we have to be able to give these people care as quickly as possible to get the results. Because think about Amazon and texting. You and I grew up before all of that stuff. And so you look at population now, how fast do they want to be recovered? Yeah. That fast. There's no answer. They're just that fast. And yet we're asking people to commit to 12, 14 visits in some recurring models, sometimes longer, sometimes less. But our skills teach us it's going to be this. But if a person's canceling all the time, they're not getting results. So a high rate of cancellations and no-shows, like you said, that increases drop-offs. Yeah. Right. And so when somebody drops out of care, that's where people start to believe that PT doesn't work or that any service, I don't care what it is. If I don't go to the chiropractor and I drop out and I only go once I've worked with chiropractors. If people only come in once every 6 weeks, it's that model. And the chiropractor's feeling down and feeling like they're not being productive or effective either. I've worked with medical offices that have patients that need to come in for recurring blood draws. And the front desk is like, wow, if we can handle this and get patients to give us better notice, now we can get more people in the door that want to be there. Right, exactly. And not to belabor the point, but if you don't make that connection to an increased arrival rate equates into fulfilling the clinic's purpose, which is what is in the best interest for the patients, like patient results improve if our arrival rate improves. If you don't make that connection, it's very easy for them to default that you're all about the numbers. You don't care about lining your pockets with profits. You have to show them how that. I mean, it's logical, but if you don't iterate that, if you don't show them that increased arrival rate, increased results for patients, and there are studies that show that, right? Oh yeah, you're missing the opportunity, right? Yeah. So it has to start with a really sound and logical why for them to want to be part of increasing this arrival rate and putting their foot down and saying, no, Mr. Patient, you have to come in order to get the results we're talking about. Yeah. And it's simply about mindset and scripting. Your PTs have a role in that. I always tell people, look, if you work at a front desk as a patient care coordinator, everything up until that eval is you. So if your front desk isn't trained, great, your PTs are doing, or your whatever provider is doing these services. If your front desk isn't trained, you're losing the ability to help people, right? So your funnel is broken. Yeah. Here's your marketing, here's your front desk, here's your provider. If your front desk isn't trained, everything up until that initial appointment or that eval, you could have a huge break right here. Okay. Great marketing. And then we keep investing in marketing because we're trying to get more patients, but we're spending all this money. We could just convert what's there. Yeah, or get them to arrive, right? And then, so that's a big part of this with that. And, your front desk has a huge job in your practice. They're not a receptionist. They are a coordinator. And their job is to handle those things that you're talking about so that the provider can provide the care.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, we've talked about 3 of the stats.
Yes. So we've got those first 3. So conversions, arrival rates, schedule utilization. The next one's visits kept per week or percent prescribed. So that's, as a provider, if you're a recurring treatment model and you prescribe 3 times a week or 2 times a week, and this is measured by patient and overall by your patient list, what's the percentage of visits per week that each patient is coming in for or attending, because that also affects cancellations and dropouts, right? Right. And so that's where the getting the patient to reschedule no matter what,
right,
and not adding it to the end of care, because when do patients really need our care? You and I know that, right? Now, not 6 weeks from now, right?
Yeah.
So that's where you, by the way, if you add it to the end, that's where you get those patients that drop out one visit before they're discharged, because in theory, they needed it sooner, right?
Yeah,
so there's that one.
Honestly, if you're an outpatient orthopedic clinic, I've seen a couple studies, but it's hard to get great results, the best results at 1 time a week. Yeah, and and I don't know about you, but when owners start tracking that particular statistic and they're assuming that patients are coming between 2 and 3 times a week, and then they track that average and it's closer to like 1.7, 1.8, 1.9, which means more people are coming 1 and 2 times a week, right? That tells me your patients are not getting the best results that they could. I would expect that number to be closer to 2.2, 2.3 if you're humming pretty well, right?
Yep. Yeah, we actually, so, you've obviously read the same study I did that, and I think the number is actually if a patient's average over the course of care is anything less than, it was like 1.96, their likelihood of dropout and unsuccessful completion rises exponentially. The more it gets below 2 a week, the more it is. And so it really is our responsibility as a provider to get that patient in the door consistently every week. And when you do, your average completion, successpul completion goes up, which in our country, Mike was just telling me whatever the number was. So for years, the number was like 60% on average in the US, 60% for PTs, successful completion. And I was like, oh, no, I can't have that. I have to have I think we run at like 85%, 90% is like our goal, but
that's great. That's amazing, because the 2018 Web PT study said that successful discharge rate was closer to 30%.
I know. That's what Mike told me the other day. And I was like, oh, I missed that. And I was a little embarrassed, but to me, that's like playing roulette with your patients.
Right. 70% of your patients are essentially failing physical. They're going home and saying physical therapy didn't work for me. They dropped off. They don't believe in it. And maybe there's a small percentage of them that were legitimately discharged early and just didn't say anything.
Yep.
But still, if we have a 40% success rate, that's still pretty horrible as a profession.
Yeah, well, and that's where it makes it a lot harder to justify what we do, to justify those higher reimbursements we were talking about, to really justify. Think about it. We were, you and I were talking about that earlier today, but people's responsibility, financial responsibility to their medical care has gone up exponentially. And the media wants you to think it's because of the provider or the doctor. But in reality, it's the insurance company putting more of the responsibility onto all of us.
Right.
But so when you have to justify, even if you're in a treatment model that's solely insurance-based, no private pay, no out of network, right? If you really want to handle your patients, you have to be able to have really great outcomes One, because you need your providers to feel like they're winning.
Yeah.
And you need the patients to see that they're winning in order to justify a higher model.
Yeah, exactly. So that's one key statistic that a number of these statistics out there outside of the arrival rate just aren't tracked on a regular basis. And unfortunately, correct me if I'm wrong, but a lot of the EMRs out there don't help you track these
Not
either.
at all. In
so
fact,
it requires some manual effort most of the time.
Yeah, we use a series of spreadsheets. It's not our ideal scene. I am trying to work through that with some EMRs right now because it's really important to be able to track and have accurate measurements. In fact, a lot of them, I'll say to staff, like, look, on Thursday for next week, you should know anybody who's not scheduled for their full plan of care. Yep. But when they go to run a report, the report only shows the patients that dropped off altogether. And I'm like, well, those patients, it's too late because now your front desk is going to spend hours trying to get them on the phone. You got to handle the people Thursday and Friday. Here's a tip for you guys. You got to handle the people Thursday and Friday that are walking through your door that are not scheduled for their full plan of care next week. And if you do that, you'll see a massive, I'm actually working on that with one of my practices that I'm doing one-on-one right now. This owner has come back to me 3 times in the last 5 years, and we are really digging in on this one with his team, making sure that Thursday and Friday, they already have next week, like all their patients that could be booked for next week. So now they know how many extra evals they need to do, or what else they need to do to manage their patients. So
this was a successful action of ours that I've tried to teach my clients as well. As we did what was called the weekly walkthrough on Thursdays with the front desk. And this was the front desk responsibility to report to the clinic director or owner in a very small clinic. And it ended up being like a 15-minute meeting max if it was run well. But it all starts with having a clean, active patient list. Yeah. Right? It has to be clean. That's like big, all the drop-offs are taken care of. You've discharged them and you've tracked those discharges, all that, but you have a clean patient list and it's an Excel spreadsheet. Yep. Who's scheduled for next week? Well, how many times did they come in this last week? And how many times are they scheduled for next week? And is it according to the plan of care? And if they're not scheduled for their plan of care visits, then you need to have comments and status next to each one of them.
We highlight their patient name. Same sheet. We highlight their patient name by a certain color, and they immediately get put on our unscheduled list for next week. So even if you're in for 1, but you're supposed to be in for 3, you're on our unscheduled list on Thursday. And so I love, well done, my friend. Like that is, well, look, and I'm glad you're working on that. I work on that too with clients because it's not easy to track that one, right? Because it requires a little extra manual work. But I will tell you the practices that track that and are handling their patients on Thursday and Friday, the front desk feels like they're winning. They don't feel like they're behind. Owners are really happy. The clinical staff aren't wondering where their patients are. Right. And you're getting more sick. The goal is, 70, 80% at least successful outcomes because think about, we started hanging success stories on our clinic walls probably like 5 years ago, 6 years ago. And last year during the pandemic, we repainted the clinic. And so we took it all down and they reorganized stuff the way they wanted it on the walls instead of this, but like the clusters on our walls now of successful completions, patients come in and they actually are like, wow, that's really cool. Wow, look at that. There I am, from the last time I was here. And, and so, you're able to promote more when you have the ability to say, look at our successful completions.
Yeah. And it simply started from me standing there, and I was treating full-time at the time, and saying, we just had a slew of new patients and we're not significantly busier. What is going on? And so I gave it the responsibility of the front desk, write down every single patient that was supposed to be in, tell me exactly where they're at and why they're not in. And after doing that enough, it just became the successful action that we continue to do week after week. And this was back in the day, it was called the weekly walkthrough because we had paper charts in our horizontal files, right? And we just kind of walk through with our fingers down each file. Where is Alex Alvarez, starting with the A's? Where is Susie B, whatever her last name is, and Susie Brown. And we'd go through the alphabet and say, oh, this one's discharged. Why are they in this active file anymore? And take them out.
We do that.
That was it.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. And that's key. It's interesting that you said a clean list. when I instill this worksheet with practices, and it's in my higher level training because they got to get through the basics with their front desk first. Yeah. When I install this in a practice, I'm like, okay, got to get a list of patients going. And they're like, holy crap, we have like 400 patients on our list. And we all laugh about it. And I was like, I told you this was going to happen. And we all joke around, but it's because like their PTs didn't finish some of their discharges, or patients dropped out and nobody got that patient. So we actually publish a list every week, multiple times a week for our clinical staff of patients that are not fully scheduled, so that our clinical staff help our front desk, because it's not just a front desk action at that point. It becomes a clinical, there's clinical responsibility.
Well, I love you. Yeah, that's the word that comes. That's when you're actually taking responsibility for the patients that have come to you. To let them just drop off and 2 weeks later say, oh, what happened to so-and-so? I never saw them again. Oh, they were nice. And that's it. No, you take the responsibility for the care that they entrusted to you, and then you call them and say, hey, remember our agreement, you got to come in order to get better, yada, yada, and handle it. But I think a lot of that's where, number one, the entire team has dropped the ball. But number two, the providers, they're so busy, they can't track all of them. Right. So you have to have a system in place. And
that's where the coordinators come in.
Right.
If your front desk manages patient care, then your front desk, your PTs, specialists, whatever your provider is, can provide the care. But there is an ownership on both sides of that spectrum as soon as they become a patient. It's not just a front desk action to manage. The front desk has stats. So those 5 stats are important, but they tell a story either at the front desk, like percent prescribed or visits kept per week, however you want to track that percentage, that tells a clinic-wide. Right. It's a front desk. If the front desk isn't scheduling people and they're just letting it add up, okay, great. But if there's problems where a provider struggles to get a patient to commit to their plan of care, or isn't keeping patients, which I talk to owners about all the time, if they're not keeping patients on the schedule as a provider because they're not creating that constant value, okay, we don't know where to look if we're not tracking that stat. And that's where you spend more money on marketing and you spend more money everywhere else. All of these stats show patients that are in your system already. Yeah. And if you shore those up and you're flowing patients in and you're keeping them on the schedule, you actually can do more with less patients, which is something that happened to us 10 years ago. Was we can do more without having to market or promote. Exactly. And so here's the thing, we were talking about this earlier with fails, right? If you have too many failed attempts to help somebody, right? What do? You
just kind of give up. You throw up your hands. You're like, well, I guess I'm not a good trainer or they can't figure it out.
Yeah. And so it doesn't matter which side of the spectrum we're talking about, the provider or the front desk. I obviously focus on the front desk, but the providers come up in my training. If we have too many patients canceling, or we have too many people that drop out of care because we don't know how to discuss the cost of care, or we don't know how to convert those callers that have questions, right? We end up with especially your front desk. This is where a lack of training and breeds a lack of confidence. So then they have these added up fails. And look, you may not tell them they fail, but they're human. They feel that fail. It's like, I'm in this job. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. With 25 cancellations today, to them, that's racking up fails. And so what you see is eventually they lose that excited mindset. They give up. That's where they quit. And they don't quit because they hate you. They quit because they're like, I can't do this anymore. I can't.
Yeah, they just hang it up and they just say, if no one's going to hold me accountable, then I guess this is okay. And I just keep doing what I'm doing because I'm getting paid.
Well, they also do it. It's not even that. I see this all the time. They even worse than them doing it for that reason, because that reason becomes very obvious. They stop challenging patients and handling patients because they're scared or they don't want that fail. So they only go for the easy patients, not because they're bad people. We all do this. Like if I do 10 discovery calls and 10 owners go, no, heck yeah, I'm going to want to hang it up. If as a provider, I used to do neuro patients. So it was a long-term treatment plan for me. I wasn't orthopedic actually. And if I had a lot of patients who didn't recover, or, like we're talking pretty bad head injuries and stroke patients, I can remember times where I would just be exhausted and want to walk away, because if I wasn't getting the product I needed to get. So it's not just that they stop trying because they don't care. They stop trying because it's like they literally feel like they have failed and they don't know what to do. And that's where, as owners, we come in to improve mindset. Like you were asking me earlier about mindset. That's a big part of this.
Yeah. Well, we didn't cover the fifth stat. What's the fifth stat?
So the fifth stat's collections, over-the-counter collections. Are you collecting?
Easy. Of course.
Right. It's easy, but that's the hardest one, right? Are you collecting 100% of what's due at the time of visit? And the new law this year puts that really into perspective for all of us, that, like, do we know what we're supposed to collect at the time of visit? Are we collecting it? Are we only going for the easy ones? At which point we become the bank as a practice, And I actually started in our clinic helping Mike with some collections and billing, just so that I could shore that area up, not because I wanted to do it. God bless the billers out there. And I tell Will that all the time. God bless you. Like that's a big thing for us. If we don't know what's due at the time of visit, we don't notice when an insurance company drops its rates, right? So that's where we start losing money. And we were like, wait a minute, this time last year, I was doing the same number of patients, but I'm making 10% less. We should know at all times what we should be collecting at the time of visit, and try to collect at the time of visit. Because think about if you're in care, if I'm your provider, right? 3 months after you're done with care, do you remember how amazing I was? Potentially?
No, there's a lot of fuzzy generalities. That it was good.
So now you get a bill from me 3 months later. Is that on your priority list?
Oh no.
No, right?
I've got a bill from a lab on my phone right now that I've been sitting on for a few weeks.
I got one from my daughter who's away at college. She had to run to urgent care, and Mike goes, this does not look like Mike is very, like, man collects at the time of visit, but that man will make a provider that bills him wait until he's like, well, you billed me, right? Yeah. Exactly. So I laugh at that all the time. So I'm glad to meet another guy like him. But yeah, so think about it in reverse. If I dropped out of care and you bill me on the back end, first of all, if I drop out of care, what's coming back at PT chiropractic care? What's coming back for that patient? Pain. Right? Their pain, their deformity. So remember when you said earlier about PT doesn't work.
Right.
So now I've got this belief that PT doesn't work, and you bill me when the insurance company completes processing.
Yep.
Think about, you're already not in a good relationship with me because you dropped out of care. You didn't want to own the fact that you didn't complete care. It's my fault you didn't complete care, not yours as a patient. And then add to that, now I give you a bill for $200, $700, whatever it is, dollars.
Right.
Where's that bill going to go for the next month until the person? Yeah. So there's a relationship that really goes downhill, is that person that could have come back to you. If they get a $300 or $700 bill 3 months down the road, as a patient, your relationship with them could completely be broken at that point, because they're like, well, forget you. I'm going to put this over here. I'll pay it eventually.
Yeah. That's the final nail in the coffin right there.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it. Yeah. And so I like to look at all of these things with a front desk, because when you can get these 5 things working really well, now the practice is running like a much more well-oiled machine. And when I say machine, we're talking not cookie cutter. We're talking about your patients are walking through the door, and the first words you hear out of their mouth is, man, you guys got it going on. This is like a system right here. Right. And that's what we want, because that's where our referral source comes from.
And don't you feel like after doing this for so many years, that when you have those systems in place and things run smoothly, that the focus can now be on the care, and that be the highlight of everything, so that the front desk interactions are almost that are secondary and should be secondary when so many times they are the forefront.
Yeah. Look, your front desk's job is to create a relationship with the patient.
Sure.
And to manage that patient's care in a way that there's no rub. You know what I mean? Like, think about it. If I'm on the phone with you, because you had asked me that earlier, if I'm on the phone with you and I don't sound confident, I'm talking to you and I don't sound confident, you've never seen in many cases, you haven't seen the provider yet. Mm-hmm. Or you haven't seen the provider in years, right? That's another case that can be a problem. Your life's changed. You're talking to me on the phone. I'm the front desk. I'm not confident. What's your trust level in the practice and the provider going to be if your front desk isn't confident and doesn't sound and look like they have it going on, not just on the phone call, but with the cancellation process, with scheduling, with collections?
Yeah.
What happens to the relationship and the trust level of the patient?
It doesn't start off on the right foot. That's for sure.
No, and it doesn't, or it doesn't continue. Right? It's where all those little systems, like your stats are great. They're so important to track, but I always teach a practice, and early on they look at me like I'm crazy when I do one-on-one, but your stats actually tell the story of what's working and what's not. Exactly. And if you then have training to back it up, now you can, when you look at a stat, so I'll give you a good example in our clinic. Like I told you, we track conversions, and we actually split conversions between patients that call us and patients we have to call. So those Facebook leads, those referrals, right? It could be a very different patient, but you should still have the same path. You don't need to have 17 paths because it creates confusion. Right. And so, I work with our team in our practice remotely, and my management team, because Mike and I are now out of the practice, the management team had a target. This is what they kept thinking was the problem. This is the problem. This is the problem. And so Mike and I sat here 1,000 miles away and pulled up the stats. And I'm like, that's not your problem. That's your problem. And it was actually front office staff had enough fails on handling those Facebook leads that come in off of, I didn't sign up for anything, click, and the front desk had backed away from it. And then my clinical team's thinking it's certain other areas of the practice, like the management team. And so by able to just show them, hey, look, you guys, look at this stat right here. Now they can manage by that statistics, but they can also, now we could say to the front desk, okay, let's go back and look at this one area.
Retrain.
Yeah. So owners will say things like cancellations, right? So if you don't have a set training program on how to handle cancellations from the eval, like how to prevent them all the way through, and you don't have a set process of what to say, how to handle the patient along each step of the way, you think we got to charge more fees. We got to increase our cancellation fee, or my front desk needs to handle the patient this way, right? But what if I said there's actually a way to prevent it and put your front desk in the driver's seat and you almost never charge fee, right? Imagine how everybody would feel like they were winning, right? Owners would feel like they're winning. Your front desk would be like, oh my God, I don't have to charge a fee all the time. No. Yeah. And guess what? Your patients would be like, oh, I got it. Okay. I'm going to show up, or I'm going to call you. And, but imagine if arrival rate drops. Well, now we know, okay, that's connected to the cancellation program and how we handle our patients.
Exactly.
Now this is where we look, and that's it.
Yeah. Not the other stuff.
Yeah. So it's just helping it's not just hiring the right people. It's having the right training that fits your practice, that gets product, and tracking the stats. Because if you track the stats tell you where to look, right? So we knew from that one stat where to retrain our front desk. Or
exactly,
if we have a PT whose stats are down, we know, okay, it's that PT. And where do we put them back through training? Oh, okay, well, these aren't a problem. This is the problem. Okay, so let's put them through patient compliance, or, depends on what they're not following at that moment.
Yeah. So the 5 stats to summarize again.
Calls converted to evals, so your conversions.
Okay.
By the way, that's 10 times. You will get 10 times more return out of handling that one than you will cancellations. But we still don't like cancellations because owners vibrate, right? So they stress out when they see those colored marks on the schedule. So conversions, arrival rate. Yep. Keep it together, but you can also split it into 2 new patient arrivals versus regular patient arrivals.
Okay.
Schedule efficiency, the mother of all mothers there, like you and I agree. Percent prescribed or visits kept per week. And you can track that on a per patient level or a practice overall patient level. Exactly. And then over the counter collections. Are you collecting what's due at the time of visit?
Well, those 5 stats and this conversation is completely different than what we planned on talking about today.
I know. You and I could talk about everything. Yeah.
And so what I need to do is we need to schedule for another conversation.
Oh, I'm back. Totally.
The reason what we actually wanted to cover today is what is the mindset and what is the personality of the perfect front desk person, right? What mindset should they have as they're coordinating care? And this is for not just those front desk people that you currently have to train them up to be great ones, but also what you need to be looking for in hires, right?
Yeah. It's really easy to get desperate, right? And so we all went through this, right? With the massive resign and the whatever, everybody had turnover. Everybody's going, oh my God, what do I do? I don't have enough staff. And, and so finding the right people is key. But also maintaining the right people is key. And so there's 2 sides to mindset. It's the hiring mindset, or like you said, who you hire. So and then keeping them up so they don't have all those fails. So we should totally talk about that.
So that's our teaser for our next episode, people. We're going to have a part 2 to this. And we'll come back around and talk about hiring for the perfect, and also training the perfect front desk person.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
You're up for that?
But thank you for that. With me, we can end up talk. Oh my God, you and I could talk for forever.
Anyways, thanks for your time today.
Thank you.
You shared a ton of great information. If people wanted to get in touch with you or Front Office Guru, how do they do that?
Yeah, they can. You simply email me at d@frontofficeguru.com or go to frontofficeguru.com. You can schedule a free call if you want to talk to me more about, problems you're having, or you can check out my new online academy if you're looking for a simple process.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Dee.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate it.